I've wanted to make this video for a while. This is a video about Star Citizen because I feel that it is a game full of promise. Yet, those of you who joined before me, so before 2019, those of you who joined after me, and those of you who've never joined but have just followed the project may have mixed feelings on the game, but understand that it has taken us a long time to get from point A with a feature to point B, and in the majority of cases, we haven't even gotten to point B yet. We haven't seen or realized any of these features that we've been waiting for years, which is frustrating. The road to 4.0 in particular has been rough. It's been something that when I hopped on, I saw where we were going, and I was really excited. I'm like, hey, next year's going to be the year. Next year's going to be there. Next year's going to be the year. And here we are, 2024, with people doubting that 4.0 will get out or even be available. Granted, we are much further along than we used to be. And I still enjoy the game. In the background here, you can see me playing one of the most recent events, and you can tell I'm being a little silly. I'm taking things slow, I'm walking, but I'm just enjoying my time. I had some spare time after my job got out, and I was like, I'm just gonna hop on. I'm just gonna take it slow. I don't need anything big today. I'm just going to take the game in and enjoy it for what it is. So that's exactly what I did here. And even though I enjoy the game, it's rough. It's hard to see. It's hard to see how long it's taken, all the promises made, and we're still not where we want to be. I'm not gonna lie about that. The biggest thing that everyone has talked about holding us back is, of course, server meshing. And so this is where I want to kind of talk just my thoughts. I'm a back-end developer. I'm a software engineer working at a company. Just so you guys understand my tenure and experience, I'm relatively young in my industry. I finished college not too long ago, and I hopped into QA first, primarily because I had 2 engineering jobs that I had applied for, that I had offers on. But the company that I was working at offered me QA because that's all they had to get me to stay. They offered me a very large salary to go with it, as they understood that's not what I wanted to do, but they wanted to keep me, which was very nice of them. And I decided to take it, and I'm very grateful for my experience to have been in QA. I say I must really feel for the people in Star Citizen who work QA, because often you hear the developers are really pushing for things, and if the thing that I always say at work, if you hear that developers are pushing things, it means that QA is not getting enough time, because developers are trying to get things right out the door and get them ready for people to enjoy, meaning that QA doesn't have enough time to validate and find all the bugs, because you can only write up the bugs that you find right away. And with the breadth of the game, and I know that they use Evocati and other measures to catch bugs, there's no way. They're probably continuously playing catch-up. Anyways, I digressed. I started in QA, and then after a year, I went into software engineering, so a position opened up. I did swap to a front-end team, but went back to the back-end team very quickly because they had a position again kind of unexpectedly pop up, which is to my benefit. And so I'm like, all right, I'm an entry-level software engineer, just gonna start learning the ropes, start getting my feet under me. And then I was very quickly, within less than a year's time, thrown into a position where my principal engineer retired and the senior left for another company. And it was me. Just me. And we had a huge task. In particular, we're trying to move all of our servers to a new type of backend. Not only that, but we were also moving out of a data center into the cloud. So I have to move everything to a whole new stack, new technology, and it's multiple services that my team owned. And it's me as an entry-level software engineer. And I was overwhelmed. The icing on top of the cake is we also weren't given enough time for what you would normally expect, even if you had a full team. And contractors were pulled on, and we did eventually find new hires to join me. In that period of time, I was able to step up and show my worth. Got promoted as a senior, so with less than 2 years under my belt, I was a senior engineer. I had migrated 50% of the type of our services, but honestly a very small portion, and at this point I am very close to wrapping up that entire project with the team that I'm on, and it's been very stressful for me personally. It's really impacted my life, and it's required me to grow quite a bit. Now, I just say that to indicate that being on a back-end team, working with technology that you may not be familiar with because either you're new to the industry or you guys are trying to create and craft up something that hasn't been done before, is very difficult, and it's very nerve-wracking, and it's very hard to express how long it's going to take. There's a famous quote that I really like from Bill Gates where he says, "You always overestimate what you can do in a year, but you underestimate what you can do in 10." And I feel like really, really applies in software development when you're talking about large projects. Because it's easy to look at and you say, oh yeah, okay. So this is what we need to do under ideal circumstances. Okay, it'll take us a year. We'll get that system out. And then what happens is you don't have ideal circumstances. So you have to accommodate for tech debt, which in my case was very real because I had to accommodate for, here's our old endpoints and our old servers, and we need you to make sure that everything plays nice with the new servers, which use a new technology, and the new endpoints that we're using, oh well, they don't support all this old stuff because they're not responsible for backwards compatibility. That's something that the back end's responsible for. You gotta make it work. And you could say, oh, but CIG's developed this all. Since they're a live service game, you may realize that they have a lot of tech debt where they've made a lot of things. Take ATC, for example, because they had to get out. They had to have players to have something. And it worked at the time, but now they have to kind of say, all right, well, crap, we need something new, but we still need to be backwards compatible so people can still play the game. We can't break things. Another example would be like ship damage, right? So we need to make a ship and we need to have it support the current model where if it takes so much damage it'll blow up, but we also need to make sure that it does the newer model where it's now component damage and it's now relay damage and whatnot. So this gets very complicated very quickly as you have to try to juggle all these different things. And it's not trying to make an excuse, it's just trying to explain a situation. Because at the end of the day, when people are trying really hard, there are reasons that they don't hit a goal. And you could say part of it could be malice, part of it could be incompetence. And you may be able to justify that if you were to find evidence. But honestly, you also have to consider it could just be the difficulty of the task. And if you were to ask someone, okay, what's it going to take? And you don't know because you're not quite sure what has to be touched yet. It's not like an engineer has the immediate thing of, oh yeah, this touches this system, this system, this system. We've got a pretty good idea. But there's so many things that will just kind of surprise and shock you. And you're just like, oh, wait a second. I just realized we can do this so much better if we do this. And honestly, we should, because otherwise we're going to be carrying baggage. And the more baggage we carry, the more difficult it's going to be to produce the game. So, talking about where they're at, I understand. I know that feeling. And I hope that they weren't being overworked. and they're not being pushed to the brink. Because that's just not healthy. These people are humans. They have friends, they have family, they have obligations, and Star Citizen is probably not their life. Hopefully it's something that they enjoy, but it's not their life. So talking about server meshing then, this item which has been looming over all of our heads, that's kind of kept everything back. It's something that I can imagine is very terrifying as a developer to tackle. Now, get out of the way. Server meshing is not new or unique to Star Citizen. The way that they're implementing it is new and unique. When I hear the CEO talk about it, when I hear the CTO talk about it, when I hear the developers talk about it, you can tell that what Chris wants as a CEO, what the CTO is trying to achieve, and what the developers are struggling to do for these last couple of years is something that honestly I would be really nervous to take on, because you're talking about a lot of pieces working together in such a way that honestly I don't think has been done before. Now, you could probably get away with achieving 90% of Chris's vision and leaving out 10%, and they could have probably delivered that way before now. But with everything that Chris wants, the fact that you should be able to seamlessly move between these shards, and if a shard goes down, it can self-recover without kicking you out, as well as the physics and the AI and all of the other things that it has to control, and all these other components that it has to touch and talk to. And the fact that you should be able to have a location where, okay, there's going to be 100, 200, whatnot of these shards of the same location, and if you're a bounty hunter, you have to go to the one with this one person on it. It's not full. It can't be full because people are bounty hunting him and they have to come to him. You're talking about just an overwhelming task. And even static server meshing, to the ability to fire, attack ships between two different servers and have the latency be so low that it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like a regular game. I was blown away at last CitizenCon when they showed that. The gun firing and the objects moving between servers, because as a developer, I was like, holy cow, like that's a lot of work. I also noticed there's a lot of things that they hid, so they probably weren't ready yet. For example, the L shape probably showed that it might be able to go between 2 servers, but not 3 servers. Just as an example. They probably hid that the recovery system may not have been perfect when you're operating in such a mesh like that. How do you compensate for those sort of things? But they've been addressing that in their videos, they've been addressing that in their releases, and it's really cool to see what they have accomplished. So server meshing, I think, is a daunting task, and again, I'm not trying to make any excuses for them, but I can feel for the developers who have probably been working their butts off just to get this released. And I can imagine the pressure, because in engineering, you get that pressure that comes down of people who really don't understand technology. They just want results. They're like, why haven't you finished this? Why hasn't this gotten done, right? And I can imagine that these teams probably too are getting pulled into other items. So most likely you've got this one project, all right, we're trying to work on server meshing, but these members may know something about another system that no one else knows about, and so they're like, okay, well, we're now having an incident, there's a bug in Star Citizen, we need you to quickly come fix this bug so that people will continue to play the game, people will continue to fund us because they want to buy more ships, and it's having an enjoyable experience, which really detracts from that. There's going to be security updates, there's going to be so many other things that as a back-end developer you have to take care of, and you have to keep on top of, that we're probably just not thinking about. So this daunting task, they are trying to keep a live service game up to date, which means they're most likely trying to patch backwards to make sure that these, or patch backwards in their eyes, patch forward in other people's eyes, right, in relation to the game, just to clarify that. And I feel for them. it's difficult. This must be, what people describe as development hell, right? You're stuck and you're trying to move forward. Everyone's got these expectations on you. And then it really does impact you when those expectations aren't met because you feel like a failure. Even though I told everyone that I couldn't achieve everything and that the goal timelines were not realistic and I needed more people and I needed more time, I felt like a failure when I couldn't deliver everything on time. Because it's your name that you're putting on it, it's your passion that you're putting into it, and that expectation others are waiting on just besides whatever leadership is bringing down orders on you. And so you feel like you let people down because other people are being told things, it's being marketed a certain way, and you're not able to achieve that. So I can imagine that is extremely difficult for these developers. The other thing that we have to understand as developers too is that there's a timetable. Eventually you run out of money. You can't continue to develop forever. You have to release something. Thankfully, in my situation, we were able to get things released and able to move things forward, and I'm nearly done with my entire migration and this big project, which makes me feel like all the stress has been lifted off my shoulders. And so I hope that they get that too, and that they're not immediately burdened with something else. I'm excited to see a game where you can just transition seamlessly between servers, and you can have all these different players in Star Citizen, because honestly there have been moments where I have landed on a planet and lo and behold there's just another valley or hill over group of players just doing their own thing, mining or doing piracy or cargo, and it's really fun to see, and it's gonna make the world feel so much more alive having all these people out and about and doing things. So I hope everything works out for them. I hope they're able to get it done, and I hope we understand too that what's being asked for them is not easy, and it's not because no one's ever done server meshing before. It's because of the tall order that's being asked of by Chris Roberts and his vision. And I'll admit, his tall order is going to make the game so much better than it could have been if we had what I mentioned before, that 90%. So hats off to the developers. I am excited to see what they can deliver by the end of the year. I hope that they make it, and I really feel for them. So here's to you. I'm really excited.